podcast excellence since 2005. This is the King of Podcasts radio network, kingofpodcasts.com.
I've come to the conclusion that Triple H really wants to be Paul Heyman.
Woo! Hey, this is the Nature Boy Ric Flair, and believe it or not, whether you like it or don't like it, learn to love it, because you have to listen to Wrestling is Real. It is the best thing going today. Woo!
The worldwide leader of podcasting excellence, the King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents The Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us.
Welcome to the Wrestling Zero Podcast. King of Podcasts is here with you. You can find the show, of course, at kingofpodcasts.com, all of my other programming. Plus, you can find out, when you go ahead and hit on the Wrestling is Real Podcast logo, you can go ahead and find out where all my shows are located. So if you want to go ahead and find out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, or if you want to find me on social media, all my links are there. You want to go ahead and add a PayPal, you want to buy me a cup of coffee, or you want to put in a Cash App, all that's right there for you. Feel free to go ahead and drop in right now, kingofpodcasts.com. And yeah, I said it. When I try to think about what Triple H has been trying to do now in the creative direction, it's apparent that NXT, which is getting a lot of focus, and I mean Shawn Michaels as well. I just wonder if D-Generation X, if both of those guys, when they were looking at what was going on, we know there was always an ECWification. It's always something that you got to understand, okay? The Attitude Era that everyone cherishes and heralds for all these years, it is a connection of two things. First of all, it's what ECW was doing in their heyday when they went from Eastern Championship Wrestling to Extreme Championship Wrestling, 1995. And then moving along, all throughout into the 2000s, up to 2001, that ECW brand and what it was and what it represented was great. But it also was, it was the feeling of the building, the feeling of what you did in there. And it's obviously, we've seen other promotions try to create that same concept. And then the other part of the scenario was Vince Russo and what he was able to go and do to encompass what was that ECW model, seeing what was over there, he was watching it, and also taking that Jerry Springer Crash TV model and full circle, which is what everybody remembers of what was the Attitude Era. And so for Triple H to try to recreate that Attitude Era with the crowd enthusiasm and how they're all involved, you see where NXT has their performance center and how they try to create that environment. And then the wrestlers, where he thinks it doesn't matter about the wrestlers having a gimmick or having anything about their character or them themselves that matters in the full aspect of things. Okay. So it's just good wrestlers that can pull off moves and create some good acrobatic stuff within reason, because of course, as a company, they have to make sure that their stars are not going to do anything that's going to be too risky or too much that's going to be too detrimental or too much for them to go and do. Because they obviously know that if they try to do something a little bit too risque, too far to push the edge, that could hurt themselves in the long run, they don't do it. Or that could be a hazard, insurance hazard, whatever it is, because these are all independent contractors still. ECW did have it's a lot of things we enjoyed about it. It was because of the fact that we had all these new stars that would come in, and it was always something where with ECW, Paul Heyman, much like how Court Bauer is today, let me put that comparison. Yes, I know. Work with me on this. Court Bauer in MLW is kind of working the operation of what ECW was back then, because always there were going to be stars that would not stay in ECW because they might get picked up. And when WCW came into play and Eric Bischoff needed to find some new stars to come fill up the roster, and he looked also into ECW. He didn't want to create ECW. He wanted to take their stars. And he had the checkbook for it, so why not? And Public Enemy and Raven and the others all followed suit. Along with Sandman, they all did. And why shouldn't they? And that was a smart move. I mean, listen, for them, for their careers, yeah, they wanted to get paid. But then there was also the stars that we all got behind that we loved and we were like totally invested in. Because of the days of ECW, Terry Funk, his story leading up to Barely Legal, amazing, this old broken man, and the story they told to make him world champion that night. Raven, and the character that was, and everything that came with him. And then all these other stars they had. When I think of the ECW of Iron, what I remember, Rob Van Dam, Jerry Lynn, the Acrobatics, these two guys going at it. Anything that include Jericho, Guerrero, Benoit, Malenko, they all started there. And I think about like when they had certain stars that left, and what are they going to do? Then ECW had to go and compromise. They had to go and find out, let's find some other stars and bring them in. The Luchadors was super crazy, right? And then going into the Japanese stars, with the Tajiri, Takami Michinoku was also there as well. Like they just had such a way of moving things along and building up stars. And so when I look at what was being done at that time, there have been others that tried to replicate it. The other two examples, I would say, in the 2010s, we had Lucha Underground. They very much were trying to create something like that because the Temple was very much the same idea as that. And remember, we had other gimmicks where in the factions that they had, there were purposes for certain people, right? Just Incredible with Jason, and you had that. You had the creation of the franchise Shane Douglas and the Triple Threat, which was a great group. Put that out there. And then the Dudleys, from Sign Guy to Big Dick to Joel Gertner to Bubba and Devon. I mean, it was just amazing. And all that they did together and everything. And then the mid-card, the upper card acts from Danny Dorian and Roadkill to Supernova. That shit was awesome. But they had gimmicks. They had something that was a novelty to them. And everybody knew who they was. Same thing with Al Snow. Like, everybody had something to go and work with them. But now we're at the point where Triple H and Shawn Michaels want that. They obviously have Paul Heyman there to drive the force and the ideas of it. I don't know if Paul Heyman would necessarily go this route anyway. I mean, we saw what he tried to do when he booked Raw before. He was trying to create something that was dramatic, something that was salacious, something that was going to go ahead and start making people talk. And I get that part. And some of the things he did, I thought were fine. I didn't have any problem with what Paul Heyman was booking. It wasn't perfect, but I thought what he was able to do within the parameters of what Vince wanted. I mean, obviously there were ideas he had that got shut down, but I liked some of the things he did. I didn't mind Bobby Lashley and Rusev. I thought that Mike and Maria Kanellis would have worked. I thought it was a great idea. They never got that off the ground, and it sucks. They more or less replicated that in TNA, but I thought it worked. There were just things that they did that they were trying to go after that was hopefully going to make something moves. Humberto Carrillo, Angel Garza trying to put them out there. I wasn't necessarily going to feel that. But, I mean, it was different. It was definitely trying things out and seeing what was going to go and work. Sink or swim. But that's not happening here. It's much of a coach's locker room. And the thing is with Paul Heyman that he doesn't, that Triple H has, is that Triple H has this big corporation and all the benefits that they have, and they're paying their stars that, if they're happy in the locker room, they're not going to want to leave, and they don't necessarily care about moving up. Because I think there is a stigma within that locker room right now that says, hey, these stars on the main roster, they're just going to be happy with where they are. They have created an environment of mediocrity. Cody Rhodes is at his level. Roman Reigns is at his level. Rhea Ripley, unfortunately, she's now hurt again, is at her level. Liv Morgan is at her level. Everybody else is mid-card. And they're kind of positioned, maybe they sound kind of important, but they're trying to make it feel like there's no hierarchy, no ceiling. But nobody's really getting over. Of the new stars, nobody's getting over. They have treaded through with Braun Breaker, Carmelo Hayes, Tiffany Stratton, Last Legend, now even going with Last Legend and Jakari Jackson. And I'm just trying to think, is anybody really getting over from all this? Just from having good matches, but not really having anything else to go with it? Because this can't just be wrestling. These are not athletes that are coming on to a pay-per-view and we're going to go ahead and be, wowed by them. It doesn't work the same way. With Paul Heyman, he had some sports entertainment aspects in him. There was entertaining value to what they were doing. And the promos that could be cut, their promos compared to what we get right now in WWE today, are milquetoast compared to what ECW offered. Do we really think that the promos are going to make that much of a difference when they go to Netflix? Oh, a little bit of salty language? No, it's not going to make a difference. And then thinking that, here's the thing we need to do to help build the ratings for CW and NXT on CW. We did the first couple arena shows. They looked good. We got a good audience from it. We took a bit of a hit after that. And we had some main roster stars to kind of support that. Well, now we're at the point where you've had some main roster stars in there. You put some introduction. Like, listen, you just put a Rhea Ripley injury angle out there with Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. And that storyline where you brought back Raquel to avenge, well, now Rhea Ripley has an orbital injury, so she's going to be out for a while. So that story, that's not even going to get told. And Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley will no longer have a solidly clean rematch. Like, that belt means nothing. So now what do you do with Raquel Rodriguez when you don't have Liv Morgan to go after? What's your next plan? They don't have a plan for that. So you do what you're going to do with CEW. And the ratings went down to 600,000. They dropped to 588,000. Sure, you want to go and say, the Kamala Harris speech in the ellipse, her closing statement, or the World Series Game 4, or it's Game 3, that's going to be the reasons why that nobody was watching NXT. That's the dent they took. Is that what you really think is going to be the it? Next week, this wrestling bubble of a company and the fandom, they're going to think that the 2300 show they do next week is going to be like the best thing since, sliced bread. They're going to create this ECW. Listen, that's not even ECW arena anymore. 2300 arena, completely done. And by the way, everybody runs it. Every other company runs that arena. This is nothing new, nothing special. All right? I want to say GCW's been there. TNA's been there. MLW's been there a bunch of times. There's nothing special or new you're going to do in there. I know the setup of the 2300 arena. So you're going to you're going to kind of fix that all up. All right. Ring of Honor's been there. Like, what are you going to do there? It's going to be any different. Bring back the ECW legends. Like a super show. That is your answer? And what you're going to do for next week? So Bubba Ray's going to be in a match. All right. You're going to bring out Dawn Marie, most likely for being a special guest referee. All right. Yeah, Dawn Marie will be special guest referee for Jada Parker against Lola Vice. And then a tag team match with Bubba Ray Dudley and Trick Williams up against Ethan Page and Rich Holland. And by the way, they're also making sure to move the show so it's not going up against election coverage. Yeah, that's smart. But then they're going to have to go up against Dynamite. And I don't care. Listen, you want to go and complain about the fact that Dynamite, the ratings are 600,000 is subpar. Well, at least it's still there. And, when they do have other competition, it's kind of stayed where it's at. I mean, you can't use the excuse of NXT having the same ratings now. It's not going to work. It doesn't make a difference. Now, besides what we already know is going to be set up for the NXT at 2300 Arena, they also have a 10-woman tag team match with Roxanne Perez, Cora Jade, Fatal Influences, Fallon Henley, GCG, Jasmine Nix against Zarya, Stephanie Vaquer, Julia, Kalani Jordan, and Jordan Grace. Now, there are stars right here among that you see that they obviously have interest in. Jada Parker, Lola Vice, all these women, Trick Williams, Ethan Page, and then Ethan Page will be accompanied by Ridge Holland. Francine and Rob Van Dam will be in attendance as well. Okay. But these are things where all those stars right there, who's really standing out in that pack that has the major upside that I believe that the company is capable of moving forward and really doing something big with? Because they're all talented, athletic, and they could be crafted and molded into stars. That's not the issue here. But I feel like all that Triple H and Entourage, they are just trying to bring in stars and just seeing which of them, just by their athletic prowess and their personality without anything else, their natural God-given personality is going to be enough for them to be somebody that's going to be likable and noticeable, right? And they also are going to think of the fact that maybe some of these stars that might have a bit of a detriment because they might not speak the language great and they might not speak the language at all, but they're going to try to give them a chance anyway and hope that something comes of these stars. In NXT, you have a lot of great stars in here, but which of those right now have a gimmick or something there that gives me emotionally vested to really, really feel like that? Some of them do. Don't get me wrong. There's names in here that I like, but I imagine if anyone else gets a chance to be put in here as well, I don't know. Now, what's also a telling thing here that is being done right now, I'm trying to understand the direction and what they're planning right now for when things change in 2025. Full control now next year from TKO Group Holdings. Nothing of Vince is going to be even part of this creation of WWE right now. It's as if we're just starting without that. All we have is the brand name, the IP, and that's it. And all these stars are going to come in. So there's a developmental system, which was NXT. Now, it's really not developmental anymore. It kind of is. It is where you're going to see some of the Performance Center stars are going to try to build up and bring up, right? But then you now have a new thing where instead of finding the international stars from other countries to build up to that global brand, now we're going to get the ID program. Independent development. So we're no longer going to have scouting out there like we used to. Now we're going to have relationships. So we need to go and talk about the ID program that's been put in place and what this is all going to mean for what they're trying to do. I'm going to take it from the website from WWE themselves. Okay. The announcement is the launch of a first of its kind developmental program designed to provide up and coming independent wrestlers a pathway to a potential career in WWE. Right. Up and coming independent wrestlers. So the thing is that you could have just continued to scout and pick off people, but I don't know. There's something about, I guess, trying to be more honorable in that respect. That's what the ID program is supposed to be. And Triple H says that this is the latest in their efforts to identify and support the journey of up-and-coming wrestlers, in turn raising the profile of and strengthening the independent wrestling ecosystem. So it also sounds like he's trying to create some kind of a exchange, not necessarily bringing them up and taking them. That he wants to make it where these WWE stars are going to be, these potential stars will be on WWE television, whether it's NXT or the main roster, or they'll be also going back into these other promotions. And they're using folks that they already know, very familiar with. So Booker T's Reality Wrestling, Cody Rhodes' Nightmare Factory, Seth Rollins' Black and Brave Academy, Elite Pro Wrestling Training Center in Concord, New Hampshire, and Knox Pro Academy in Los Angeles. They will all get the official designation as WWE ID schools. So what they're going to do now is we're not even going to send people to the and I guess that's one of the things they're trying to figure out. Okay, so you're not going to necessarily use the Performance Center as a polishing school. What you're going to do is you're going to try to work with them within their parameters and let them continue to work within the independent circles, the circuit, and then move themselves up. They're going to identify top independent wrestling prospects with an official WWE ID prospect designation, support the developmental journey, providing financial opportunity and assisting with training, mentorship, and development, including access to world-class facilities, the Performance Center, best in-class ring training, trainings, whatever. Yeah, so they're going to, the journey to the Performance Center. These independent wrestlers will come in through that program. Aside from the NIL program, which is taking pure athletes that want to integrate into coming out of college and going into this. So they got this plan, and already we know there's a couple of stars that are already being signed into this program that they're going to try to use and see what they can do. Brandon Thurston of Pro Wrestling has already seen that several independent wrestlers are already under contracts. They have not been named, but they will continue to appear at independent events, and a source familiar with the program clarifies that there are no current restrictions on where independent talent can appear or whether they can lose matches. Interesting. And no financial support is being provided to the schools when it comes to the wrestling schools. They just want to take the wrestling that's going to be done that's hosted by all these academies. That's really what the plan is. So these kind of like wrestling dojos, and then they're going to have them where they're going to be able to showcase them how they're going to be exhibited when they're out wrestling independently, wherever they're wrestling at. And then take that as their chance to go and get their work in and then move them up. That's the plan here. I don't know if I necessarily think it's a great idea and how they're going to work on it, but it's a different direction. We're going to continue to try to pile on talent. But where's the development? The development is, all right, you want to make them so they're going to look the caliber of a WWE superstar. You're going to create them so they can, it's going to be the ring work. That's the focus. Where's the focus on the promos? Where's the focus on their skills to be able to entertain? They got to be able to cut promos. They got to be able to, kind of have some acting skills along with that too. And you need to create a character that they're going to be able to go ahead and excel with. But this company, why are they afraid of having the autonomy to use these stars as talent and use them as they want? Why are they so worried about the fact that they want to just let these stars kind of do what they want? I honestly think things really got into a bad place. First of all, going back to when we started seeing stars like in Olympic Village, you started seeing some of the stars that were there and they started hooking up. Like all that fraternization in the locker room, and seeing there were couples that were coming up out of those groups. And did that really help and do any good for people out there? I mean, some, there's going to be obviously exceptions to the rule because of where they're working. But then also the part is that the favoritism of which stars that people like. And is it really because of what it means for the company and what it means to know that these stars are going to be standouts, and that like you have like a plethora of stars right now on your main roster that if you need to go ahead and book a WrestleMania and you could put some really good matches together, you can. We are working right now off of stars that for the most part Vince still had a hand in creating. So we look at what they have for Crown Jewel coming up this week. This coming up on Saturday, right? So Cody Rhodes and Gunther, again, this is just exhibition. It doesn't really matter what the Saudi Crown Princes are going to get. They're going to get the Crown Jewel Championship, so that's something important for them. That's the new carrot that's going to get them their money this year. Nia Jax, Liv Morgan. By the way, Liv Morgan signs a new contract, so she's out there and she's going to stay for a long time. Nia Jax, Liv Morgan. And if I want to go ahead and give predictions, I'll give them right now. Cody will beat Gunther. Nia Jax will beat... Liv Morgan will beat Nia Jax. I expect that. LA Knight will take on Carmelo Hayes and Andrade. I expect LA Knight to win and retain. And then the women's tag team titles, you got a 4-way with Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill. They're going to beat Damage Control. They're going to beat Lash Legend and Jakar Jackson. And they're going to beat Chelsea Green, Piper Niven. Done. And Kevin Owens, Randy Orton. They built that up, and I don't necessarily care for this storyline. Now, of course, obviously two capable stars that could do very well upper mid-card or in the main event. But now we're going to have the story with Randy Orton and Kevin Owens where, okay, we know the animosity they have, and there really has not been a lot that's been said about Kevin Owens except for the fact that he always acts like this. He always turns heel eventually. And then Triple H telling Randy Orton, oh no, I'm protecting you from Kevin Owens. I mean, that's fine. The storyline's fine. I don't care. I don't really like it that much, but okay. I'm sure it's a very good match. I know these guys work with each other. That should be not an issue at all. So, okay. At least they're working, doing something. And that's it with that. But we know that Survivor Series, they're going to build matches for that. And they're already building up for the Bloodline to going up against the one bloodline, the OG bloodline against the new bloodline, and work off of that. And so far, they're doing things here, and like just the way they're trying to do the reunion, I'm not necessarily happy about that either. But I guess my problem in the bloodline storyline is that I don't like the way that they decided to go and bring in Roman Reigns as a babyface. He feels weaker. I wanted Roman Reigns to continue to have the bravado, the ego. The thing is, he should have that against the new bloodline and put the mutinous bloodline in their place. Like, why is he allowing Solo Sikoa to still play tribal chief ahead of the table? Because the other thing, too, is that Roman Reigns, for weeks, kept getting himself beat down, trying to go ahead and compromise, trying to do something just to get himself back in, because of the fact that he took away Solo Sikoa's chance to go and become champion. Got it. But still, I don't like the fact that Roman Reigns keeps getting beat down, and then we got to wait for the Usos to finally show up. And the way he decided to go and bring Jey Uso back in, I mean, take Jimmy back, sure. But then finally a short way of trying to bring in Jey Uso back in without not much of a story to like bring him back, except for the fact that the Intercontinental title, let's just go and add the bloodline in there to interfere so that Jey Uso loses the belt. And then the part with Sami Zayn and trying to use him here. Like, do we really want Sami Zayn as a part of this again? Like, I know some people think that he's going to be brought back into the bloodline, the OG bloodline, to go and work the Survivor Series pay-per-view. I don't like that. And I just don't like what Sami Zayn's been right now as this character. Again, I have not liked anything they've done with him since he left. Like, okay, he was great. You know, he really was doing great for about a good year after the bloodline, but that's all worn out. Like, the fanfare for him, I think it's gone. What they do with him with Alpha Academy, that whole storyline with Chad Gable, and then with Gunther, like, I don't want to hear it anymore, man. It's just done. They could have taken more time to build this up, but like I said, it's positioning the stars as they are. Like, Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns feel weak as baby faces, and they're doing just stupid things. And then as the heels, I'm not really like big, and usually you would think I would be happy about the heels. I'm not right now. I'm not feeling this at all. And I wish I did. When I look at what we're seeing right now amongst the show and trying to get something out of everything here, I really try. I mean, I really, really try to get myself caught up in here what they're doing. But it is so difficult. Because number one, they're not giving me too much to kind of work off of. Like, I'm just not really excited or amazed. Oh, so Motor City Machine Guns wins the tag team titles on SmackDown. Great. Good for them. Is that going to make a dent in the ratings? It did not. SmackDown dropped again in their ratings. Now, it did come back up from last week's show, but again, 1.4 million viewers. And they were outmatched by NBA actually coming back last week, the first week of the NBA season coming back, and it was the Pacers and Knicks. That's what they had to come up against. And sure, you got college football and Fox and all, but 1.4 million viewers, that's it. It shows down 36% since it was on Fox. So you're down. Shows dropped 31% compared to last year's fourth quarter. 18 to 49-year-old viewers has dropped 20% in that time frame. So the move to the USA, it's got some climbing to do. And the Motor City Machine Guns winning the titles to close out, that didn't do anything. It's great for them. Listen, for Motor City Machine Guns, I'm happy they're there. I don't think we need to see them as a tag team again, because I actually like both of them, and I think what they were doing in TNA was a very great job of having them out there as individual wrestlers. We know that for Chris Sabin and Alex Shelley individually, they were doing really well as in that case, but for WWE, I guess they got to come in as a tag team. But I always liked them as singles wrestlers too. But I think you do well with the Motor City Machine Guns when you have a lot of good teams to go up against that are going to really create for great matches. DIY, Street Profits. I mean, you got tag teams for the sake of tag teams. But none of these tag teams right now are really giving me anything that I feel like I'm getting too much to know about them, some depth about them, something that's about them individually that makes me like them. I don't want to just like stars because they're in the ring and they work good. Because that's everybody. What's making any of these stars any different? The fact that Motor City Machine Guns, they're different because we know them from somewhere else. Their gimmick is fleshed out. We know who they are. I mean, some of these other stars are, but like really, it's like they're just generic. It's obvious that WWE can go in and basically just find generic stars that can come in, that can work really well and do whatever. And they don't mind taking tag teams and just putting them together. I mean, no matter how everybody feels with Nation Frazier and Axum, yeah, great tag team, but they're just kind of like put together and they're good. But I couldn't tell you anything about them or any reason why they really have so much chemistry together. The Street Profits, we've had the story about them. We know something about somewhat. Grayson Waller and Austin Theory, yeah, somewhat. We only know the history. There's a history with Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa from their NXT days and from previous. That's all we got. And do we think that any of these stars right now in these tag teams, are they going to go down the line and eventually become split up? War Raiders, here's another example. Like, are any of these tag teams, are you going to have something where down the line you might find out which star is going to be the standout among the two, and then we make something with that? Like, it's something to be said about when you have tag teams that split up and how good it is when you do that. But they're not doing that. They don't want to do that. I don't know why. Then again, there's not a lot of promotions to do that anyway. But I'm trying here, man. I'm really trying to get something more out of all these, but it's really tough. So into the TV that we had this week so far. Triple Threat, number one contenders match, right? From what we had, Jey Uso comes out. And Jimmy comes out, and they finally get themselves put together to squash the beef, right? And then the Usos get attacked by the Tongans. And here comes everything going on with that. We have the continuation of Ludwig Kaiser and Sheamus. I don't care about this feud. Well, you're not making these matches that are going to be put into the premium live events. Why am I caring? Sheamus is just working with somebody. First of all, it was not too long ago he was working with Pete Dunne, and now it's Ludwig Kaiser. I don't know. Do they just want to just be able to work with each other just like they're sparring partners? I don't know. But I don't care much of the storyline that we already had. They gave us a little bit of the story, but then it's just match. That's it. Ivy Nile and Zelina Vega. You want to give us that match? I'm like, okay, women's match with no storyline really with it. Not much. You want to say there's an LWO and a American Made kind of deal? I don't know. I don't feel like there's any consequences, anything that happens. Seth Rollins talking, and him and Bronson Reed trying to be set up. You know, I'll care more when I see Seth Rollins and Bronson Reed start having matches. The whole thing of them kind of attacking each other, you know, the backstage thing with the curb stomp and on top of a car, and then, you know, all the stuff. There were, again, more cars and trucks being damaged where Bronson Reed has to show, ooh, big guy strength, roar. Like, whatever, man. Then the World Tag Team titles, New Day, War Raiders, LWO. And I'm like, okay. LWO, again, this just ragtag, just like Judgment Day. Not much of a story there to tell. Because we really don't see a lot of them. They might be talking to somebody backstage, whether it's a Jackie Redmond or Kathy Kelly or whoever backstage, and they're kind of doing their own thing, and they'll just have these promos. But there's not much more. Like, how many promos do you have out of LWO that you really work off of there? You got Rey Mysterio basically as your mouthpiece. Judgment Day, who's really your mouthpiece over there? What, Finn Balor? Think about that part. When you had factions, you also think about, you would have somebody that, like, there would be roles that some of these people to do. With the Bloodline, the new Bloodline, it's Solo Sikoa that's the talker. You are leading some factions with some really bad promo cutters. Or half-ass of anything. It's not good. Dominic Mysterio, Damian Priest. We get this match, and I'm like, well, yeah. Well, they give us here, it's something to go to Judgment Day. It's like Damian Priest can't move on from that. Let's just continue that part. And Dominic Mysterio gets the match. Wins it. And then plunder, interference, or a little more post-match stuff going on with Judgment Day going after Damian Priest, and that's it. I'm like, well, all right. They're going to continue to do that. And now, of course, without his Terror Twin power with Rhea Ripley, because she's out, what are you going to do to fill that up? What's your plan? Because I'm sure they had a plan with Rhea Ripley to go do something here. I guess they're not going to have anything now. They have all these TV storylines that, because they're TV, it's not going to really make much of a difference. And even if they build a match up, they're not doing anything right now where there's matches that are so compelling that even if your base fandom audience doesn't want to watch the clip on TV, they'll actually come in and watch the match. What are they doing about that? Yeah, random IC title match, these tag team title matches, these tournament matches. It's not working. It's not working at all. Because as always, we get back to this again. As always, when the ratings come through and they're going up against a lot of competition, Raw, oh my goodness, I didn't want to talk about what Raw was going through. I was thinking about the fact, okay, you got Monday Night Football and the World Series. Man, you are not going to do well with that. So, excuse me, NXT went up against Game 4. Game 3 of the World Series was on Monday. Raw, 1.4 million viewers. 12% week-to-week drop. 17.5% decline of the demo from October 21st. Lowest viewer total in more than a month. Worst rating since last Christmas's Best of Clip show. When you can't retain at least some of that audience, I mean, the fact that they're now at 1.6 if they're going to be performing best, and 1.4 now, when they're going up against all this other coverage. 13 million viewers for Monday Night Football. 13.6 million viewers for the World Series. Man, not helping. Not helping. This is not good. To see this going in the direction they're going with right now, when it comes to the move to Netflix, this is not momentum. This is decline. There's always going to be something that's going to go up and compete on a regular basis. So these 3 shows on television are suffering right now. But there's no answer to this. When you had all that time before football and all these other sports started to come back, all that time during the summer, what were they doing? All that time they didn't have the Bloodline. When the Bloodline storyline took a break, and then you bring it back now. What did you do the last 6 months? That really did something to move the needle and get more people watching the programming. I'm trying to figure it out. Look, I'll tell you this. Honestly, I feel like when it comes to AEW and what they've been doing, they are making shifts. I mean, their storylines at least move. If there is something you don't necessarily like, okay, we move along. Let's go to something else. That's fine. But they're not. And it just keeps moving like this. NXT was just a regular NXT show for the most part. And that's fine. NXT Heritage Cup, right? Whatever. Wendy Chu, the new character right now, up against Tatum Paxley, and they take care of things right there. And Tatum Paxley gets the win. Bubba Ray's appearance to deal with Trick Williams leading up to their match next week. Zarya with a squash match over Brindley Reese, right? Which I don't get the interest or the momentum they're getting. I mean, for the fandom over here, for Zarya, formerly Delta, for Stephanie Vaquer, for Julia, I don't see what you're going to do to make these stars resonate on that main roster. This is like a big culture change here. What do you think you're going to do here to make things change now and they're going to get better? I'm trying to figure that out. I don't see it. I don't. Kalani Jr., after losing the North American title, she gets a returning Nikita Lyons. By the way, yes, we all like her, but you know what? She's fragile. I can't believe she's back for a third time trying to get herself back up and working again. And Kalani Jr. gets the win. So what are we doing that for? It's like all this. I'm just trying to figure out what are we getting out of this that's going to be good. It's not anything about debuts and what they're doing. Like, okay, I will say this with Dynamite. At least we saw some direction of what they were going to do in terms of their shows, right? You get Private Party winning over the Young Bucks, finally getting the tag team titles. The stipulation was in place that if they didn't win, they would have to break up as a team. There we go. Orange Cassidy challenging for the AEW World title at Full Gear, coming on in all black. A big change, and they're all kind of like, trying to pulling out of that. Adam Cole trying to build up to his match with MJF. Like, you're doing something right now. They have all these matches being set up right now. Post All In, post All Out, post Wrestle Dream, and right now it's back into regular storylines. That's where we're at right now. Jericho becoming 9-time champion again, and now he takes the Ring of Honor World title back. What are they going to do with that? I don't know. But they're going to have him and Ishii again, I guess. Kyle Fletcher in the setup with him and Will Ospreay, so that rivalry between them going to get built up. Got it. Like, they are building storylines. They are getting us to a particular end to certain storylines. The building up of the storyline with the Hurt Business, now seeing that Bobby Lashley has now made it into the company with Shelton Benjamin. Will Swerve Strickland join them, or will he be at their side? Will be still against them? But they have built that up right now, post world title for Shane Strickland, or for Swerve Strickland. That's great for him. On the Dynamite side, you got some things right there. Donna Process got her personal feud right now. That's great. And she's working on that. They're trying to build up Anna Jay once again. She's back from injury. That's good. And, they got the Outrunners. It's been a pretty big thing about this real old school looking storyline of this tag team. And people are really into it. And they're enjoying it. And it's getting very viral with them, which is really cool. Right? I mean, they're going in some directions. I don't mind some of that. That's cool. But I want more. I could go on and talk about this for more time, but I just can't do it. Like this week, I'm just a little bit fed up. I don't want to keep going after the fandom. Man, it's just some weeks I don't want to keep going on this here constantly. And I'm not going to go ahead and change myself and say, okay, that I feel like we're going to get somewhere. Like all these changes that I'm not necessarily feeling like they're going anywhere, that I feel hesitant and I feel very critical of. I don't know if they're going to pan out. I'm trying to hold out for hope. I am. But I don't see it. And what's really also weird is the fact that, obviously because the fandom out there gets really triggered and upset if you try to say anything about this, then you can't. Right? But that's where we're at. I just can't anymore. I'm going to wait for Crown Jewel because we'll have more to talk about right there. And I think that'll be much more of a better place for me to continue this conversation and just kind of like let more ranting go along because I just can't do it, man. We'll keep it at 45 minutes. Keep it a little bit short because I gave you a lot last week, so I'm not going to go ahead and go and run along again just to continue just to go and vent. It's not worth it. I won't do it. So we're just going to leave it there. Enjoy Crown Jewel this weekend. And we'll talk after that. Do a post show right here on the Wrestling Podcast because wrestling needs us.